Today on Sports Central, we go over our 2022 college football predictions for the NC State Wolfpack, one of the top teams in the ACC in the 2021 season, as this team went 9-3 overall. How will this team be in 2022? Will this team be a potential dark horse national contender in the 2022 season? That's what we go over here today. We'll be analyzing this team, predicting their schedule game by game in this video, starting out with your team trends. NC State 9-3 last season. They're 5-1 in their first 6 games, 4-2 in their last 6. I mean, this team I feel like was fairly overlooked in the ACC. I mean, you had Wake Forest, who was really good last season. Of course, Clemson eventually got up there towards the end of the year. Pitt was really good as well. But NC State, this team was 9-3. They, of course, lost a couple of close ones to Miami and Wake Forest. But, I mean, this team was very capable of being a 10 or 11 win team last season at least. So, I mean, this was a good team last season, and we'll get into the return production in a second here. But, I mean, this team does look good going into next season. Beat Clemson 27-21 on September 25th. That was a huge win. Number 9 team in the nation there were the Tigers at the time. And, I mean, Clemson, that's a team that really improved over the course of the season. And in September, the Tigers didn't look too good, that's for sure. Beat Boston College 33-7 on the road. That was a huge win. Lost to Miami the next week by 1 on the road. And, I mean, the Hurricanes, they were a decent team last season. But, of course, losing by 1 in a game like that, I mean, that was tough to lose. I mean, once again, that's what I'm saying here. I mean, NC State, this team was very close to being a 10 or 11 win team. They lost to Wake Forest by 3, 42-45. I mean, Wake Forest was the number 12 team in the nation at the time. Beat Florida State by 2 touchdowns and also beat North Carolina, their rival, 34-30. So it was not a bad season for NC State. I once again feel like this team was pretty overlooked. And heading into 2022, I mean, if you look at the returning production, Devin Leary is coming back. Who last season, he had a really good season in 2021, putting up 3,400 yards. His touchdown interception ratio is 35-5, which is very impressive. I mean, he's not a rushing quarterback. He's not a dual threat quarterback by any means. So his passing stats obviously weigh a lot. And, I mean, he wasn't terrible last season, 66% completion rate, which is not bad by any means. And once again, the touchdown interception ratio, 35-5, is definitely impressive. The backfield does lose a couple. Zonovan Knight, he is not returning. He put up 900 yards last season. And also Ricky Person Jr. Put up 870 yards and 7 touchdowns. So the backfield does lose a couple. That is the one question mark that I see on this team, though. I mean, the receiving core looks pretty good. Emezi, you do lose him. Your top receiver from last season to put up 800 yards. But you return, I mean, you got some good depth in that receiving core there. You got Thayer Thomas coming back, who last season, I mean, yeah, Thayer Thomas, he was excellent. 500 yards, nearly 600 with 8 touchdowns. Devin Carter's also coming back, who put up 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. And same with Porter Rooks. So receiving core looks good. You lose your top there in Emezi. But, I mean, otherwise, I mean, Devin Leary coming back is huge. And the backfield, once again, is the main question mark here. You lose 2 offensive linemen, 1 linebacker, 1 in the secondary. Defensively, this team looks really good. Returning mostly everyone there. So, I mean, NC State, if they can get the backfield figured out, if they can get a couple of running backs to put up some good yards and make some good production, I mean, NC State, this team could be a national contender next season. You're hearing it here first. I mean, I'm sure most Wolfpack fans know that they've got a good team next season in this 2022 season. But, I mean, the schedule, I mean, they do have somewhat of a difficult schedule, but I mean, this team definitely can make the most of it, and if they can win those close games, I mean, we could see the Wolfpack as a definite contender in the 2022 season. Transfer portal and recruiting, this team does lose Max Fisher, receiver. He really didn't have too big of an impact last season on this team. Daryl Jones, receiver, is coming in from Maryland, so you add even more depth to that position. Khalid Martin, safety, is in the transfer portal. Hawkins, defensive lineman, defensive back Love. Same with Dante Johnson, all leaving, and Nick Booker Brown, defensive lineman's off to UTSA. And then you bring in a safety, Derek Pitts from Marshall. Recruiting-wise, 64th in the nation, 10th in the ACC. So recruiting could be better. I mean, certainly it's not a terrible concern. You got 2 4-stars, 10 3-stars coming in. 64th in the nation and 10th in the ACC isn't very good by any means. But, I mean, considering what this team has in 2022, I mean, 2022, if there's going to be any year that NC State makes the college football playoff, I would say in the near future, I mean, this is going to be the one. I mean, this NC State team is set up for a winning season, for a really good season, and I mean, this could be the Wolfpack's year. I'm just saying that right now. I mean, this team looks really good across the board. So, but that said, let's look at your schedule now going into next season. You got East Carolina on the road to start off the season, and that could be, I mean, East Carolina, not expecting too much out of them, but it is a road game to start off the season, and you got to be careful with those road games to start off the season. I mean, usually, there are some times where, especially if you're a Power 5 team, you got to win those games. And, East Carolina's not going to be a very good team, but going on the road there, you don't want to get caught off guard there and end up losing that one. But then you got Charleston Southern coming to town in week 2, Texas Tech on the 17th, and then you got UConn after that. So September is extremely manageable, but of course you can't forget about the East Carolina game. Got to win that one on the road. You got Clemson on the road to start off your October. You got Florida State at home on the 8th. You got Syracuse on the road, and then Virginia Tech to finish out your October. Then you got Wake Forest at home. That's a huge game. Clemson and Wake Forest are both massive games. And then you got Boston College at home, Louisville on the road, and then North Carolina on the road to finish out the season here. So, North Carolina on the road is going to be tough. You got 2 road games to finish out the season. So your road games are kind of, they're kind of in challenging places. You got 2 to finish out the regular season. You got 1 to start off the season, but you do have, you're not really at home for too long. Throughout the season. You do have 3 weeks there with your bye week towards the end of October, and then you get Virginia Tech and Wake Forest both at home. But otherwise, it can be a challenging schedule in that way. But looking at September here, I say it's very manageable. East Carolina, you end up beating them by more than 2 touchdowns. I think you are ready to go there, but obviously can't sleep on that one. You got Charleston Southern at home, easy win. Texas Tech, I will put that game in yellow. I do think that game is a bit closer than expected, but Texas Tech, I don't really expect them to be too good next season. And then you got UConn on the 24th. That's going to be an easy win. UConn, one of the worst teams in the FBS, so you should take care of them fairly easily. So I got you 4-0 through your month of September. Looking at October there, you got Clemson on the road. That is a huge game. Clemson next season, I do think is going to be better. Potentially, once again, a national contender will be Clemson in the 2022 season. They improved a lot over the course of the 2021 season, and I could definitely see them in the 10 to 12 win range next year. So Clemson, I will favor the Tigers there. That's going to be a good team. I think they end up beating NC State in what will be a close game. Then you got Florida State on the 8th. That's going to be a close one, but I don't think Florida State's going to be too good. Maybe in the 5 to 8 win range. So I do think that's very winnable. And it's going to be closer, but you beat them. You beat Syracuse easily on the road. They're probably one of the worst teams in the ACC. And then you got Virginia Tech. That could be a tricky one there coming up after your bye. And I also think it's on a Thursday night, if I'm right. That's what it looks like. So, I can't sleep on that one, but I think you take care of the Hokies there in the end. So you're 7-1 heading into November. And honestly, if you are a 1-loss team heading into November, you're still in pretty good shape. If you're undefeated heading into November, you should be ranked probably in the top 6, top 7, at least the top 10. And then you got Wake Forest, which will be a huge one. Wake Forest should be decent next season. I think you get a win against them at home. Then you got Boston College at home there, easy win. Then Louisville on the road. I will put that game in yellow against Louisville. I do think that one's a bit closer, but North Carolina then on the road. Now this is a challenging one. North Carolina, that game is pretty much a coin toss for me. I'm going to be picking the Tar Heels there because I feel like, the second game in a 2 road game stretch, I do think that one's more of a challenge, and I feel like the Tar Heels will be, they'll be a decent team next season. I don't know if I really expect them to be a national contender like I think NC State could be, but I feel like I'm going to pick the Tar Heels there in what would be a close one. So 10-2 is my predicted record for NC State going into next season, but I definitely think 11-1 is incredibly possible, but you got to win those close games. And if you can beat Clemson there on October 1st, that is a great win there. If you're 5-0 heading into that Florida State matchup, I think you're in a really good place. And once again, I feel like all of the games are very winnable on NC State's schedule next season. I feel like there's a chance NC State goes undefeated. I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. But I'm gonna predict 10-2 just because I feel like this team does slip up a bit on the road. I think that Clemson game, I am pretty comfortable picking the Tigers there. I feel like Clemson, especially after how last season's game went, I think they'll be motivated and ready to go, and they get the win there in close one. But North Carolina especially, I feel like that game could easily go either way. But yeah, 10-2 is my predicted record. I feel like this team very easily could win an ACC title next season, but of course you got to be Clemson, and yeah, you got to stay very consistent. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on NC State. I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.